Probably not going to be able to really see it all that well, but there's nothing wrong with that. That definitely not a problem. These little engines, you know, they don't have bearings. That cap is aluminum and it is the bearing. I guess I'm going to have to get help turn this. Okay. You know, something I've found over the years that always holds true is if you think you should take something out and to move it out of your way, just do it. You're right. It'll make the job easier. It'll make your life easier. In this case, you know, it's a spark plug. How hard was it to take out? Now we need to get out the Suck-O-Matic 3000 here and suck out all the oil I just put in there. Luckily it's nice cold oil, so it'll take a long time to pump it out of there. My guess is you'll get tired of watching that because it'll take a while. Okay, we got most of the oil sucked out of there. I also went ahead and did a few preemptive bolt removals. That's the good thing I grabbed the magnet again. This is what I was talking about. This is basically your lifter on this engine. This side rides on the cam and this side push rod rides on. And little 8mm shouldered bolt holds that in. Same way on the other side. Same contraption. The other camshaft rod has your oil pump on the bottom of it, which is held in place with a little pin. And one little piece of crap on there, but nothing, you know. I would say things in this engine were generally clean. Then, for those of you wondering, on the bottom of the exhaust cam is this little clip. And it has a couple of little grooves. And the camshaft has a little pin in it that has to sit in those grooves. That keeps the shaft from spinning. Okay. I think we're ready to pull this crankshaft out of here. Maybe. Yeah. This is your counterbalance shaft that holds, well, it keeps your counterbalance centered in the engine case. That's what it does. Oh, we're hitting the crankshaft on the connecting rod. Okay. There we go. We got it out. I don't know, there is some clumps of stuff down in there. I don't know if that was for me when I opened it up. I don't think, yeah, that had to have been from me rooting around in here. There's the oil pump in that corner. Yes, this fancy engine has an actual oil pump. Just basically the same type of stuff that you have in any 4-stroke engine. See, there's no cracks anywhere in this block. The cylinder, I'm sure, is fine. Piston, the connecting rod is obviously fine. I don't know if we can, you know, there's nothing not usable about any of that. What the problem is, I will try to show you. And maybe that's not even the problem, but I think what we'll find is the problem is on the bottom side of the crankshaft. This assembly, big square hunk of cast iron, that's your counterbalance. And that's interesting. Okay. You'll see, possibly, if I can hold it down. I don't know if you can hear that little, that's the vibration and noise. One of the bearings in this counterbalance is bad. And honestly, this one's not horrible. Kind of had to do a double take on it. Let's go ahead and buzz these bolts out, and we will see what we can see. Like I said, the counterbalance is just a giant piece of cast iron. The counterbalance itself, I don't think you can break that. See, here's, oh, you know, they made like 5 different combinations of this engine, and this one doesn't even have bearings in it. It's got, just like the crankshaft, the bearing surface is just machined into this piece of aluminum. And you can see, maybe not real well on video, but you see the markings there. That is this thing being no good. I don't know if you can see those markings along that edge. That's where it was wobbling around in there and vibrating like crazy, because this aluminum is worn out. The crankshaft is probably perfectly good, just like everything else here. This one is definitely where the noise was coming, or the vibration was coming from. And once they get worse, the the vibration becomes a noise. And a lot of people think it's a rod knock, but it's not. It's just these. Now, this must be like the first generation of this part, because later on they did put a bushing type bearing in here, and it didn't work any better than just the aluminum casted ones did. So anyway, that is what's wrong with that. You can tell looking at the crank though. You know, there's no damage. There's not even any aluminum built up on that journal. And then where the connecting rod goes, that's in perfect condition. This is a perfectly good crankshaft. Usually, you let that go too long, and it can damage the journals that these counterbalance bushings ride on. There is also a key in the top, one of those, a Woodruff key. So yeah, I don't know what we're going to do with this. I'm going to have to think about it a while. This really isn't that bad. I don't know. I'm sure there's a tolerance on these things that once it's exceeded, there's no going back. But it doesn't mean we can't try. So we'll see. I'll put some thought into it. Okay, I did a little thinking on all this. And I've messed with these engines a lot. And I've never really been able to save one. I think what I'm going to do with this one is save a few parts. Like the crankcase is good. I've thrown away a lot of perfectly good running engines that have had that crack of death over here. Keep the block, the piston, and the connecting rod. And the rest of it is going to go in the scrap pile. You know, because there, you know, the sad part is, if you could get that little aluminum piece, I think you could replace those, and this engine would easily go another 300 or 400 hours if we can keep the oil in it, which I'll show you on this. Get this governor out of the way. This oil drain here. I used to work at a Cub Cadet dealership, and we sold Cub Cadets and Husqvarnas and stuff like that, brand new. And these oil drains, I mean, look at that. You know, that's a third of a turn finger loose, and then you could probably turn it another half a turn to tighten it. They come that way from the factory on a lot of equipment. So, like I say, if you can keep the oil in these things, they do last. That's a big problem, the drain, the top cover bolts. And what happens to these top covers is once the bolts come loose, there's two pins in the block, one there and one in the back. And when the bolts get loose, the thing starts vibrating all over the place. And as those pins get wore, You know, they eat into the aluminum and they wear farther and farther. And then the block will usually crack right here. And I've seen them cracked from here all the way down to the crankshaft. I think we'll skip that. Anyhow, I'm going to save this part. I'm going to scrap the rest of it. And so we'll have to find a different engine for our Cub Cadet.